8,000 years ago, the seas of the north carried a name that still echoes through history. Cnut the Great. Was he the ruthless Viking who carved empires from blood and steel? Or a wise ruler who humbled himself before God and reshaped England's destiny? His story lies somewhere between truth and myth, between battle and legend. Tonight, we uncover the hidden face of a king who once ruled the waves and challenged even the tide itself. This is not just history. It is the untold saga of Cnut the Great. If you want more epic tales like this, make sure to subscribe and join us on this journey through the shadows of the past. Fact 1. A prince born in fire and shadows. The year was around 995. In Denmark, the halls of power echoed with the clash of ambition. Torches blazed inside the great longhouse, their light falling upon Sweyn Forkbeard, the fearsome king of Denmark, Norway, and conqueror of England. Around him, warriors feasted, ale flowed, and songs praised his victories. Yet in the shadows of that hall, a boy watched quietly. His name was Cnut. Unlike the roaring warriors around him, Cnut's youth was marked by silence and observation. He saw how his father ruled with both terror and cunning. He saw how loyalty could be bought, broken, or burned. And he learned that in the Viking world, bloodlines were both protection and curse. To be Sweyn's son was to be destined for greatness, or for ruin. Cnut's childhood was shaped not by innocence, but by constant readiness. Skalds sang him sagas of gods and heroes, but he also heard whispers of betrayal and ambition. His education was not only in scripture or swordplay, it was in the brutal truth of Viking politics. When Sweyn briefly conquered England in 1013, Cnut followed. For the first time, he set foot on the soil that would one day become his kingdom. He saw the riches of English churches, the fear in the eyes of its people, and the heavy crown that lay upon King Ethelred's brow. Even as a boy, he understood. England was more than a prize. It was a throne worth bleeding for. Backhand index pointing right, this was no ordinary Viking heir. He was a prince forged in shadows, destined to walk the line between man and myth. Fact 2. The first taste of defeat. In 1014, the sea carried Cnut back to England, but this time, not as a child, but as a commander. His longships cut through the winter waters, their dragon heads biting the wind. Warriors followed him, hungry for plunder, glory, and revenge for his father's death. But war is never merciful. The English, roused by Ethelred's return, struck hard. Villages burned, castles resisted, and Viking camps starved. The young prince's army thinned with every passing week. He was mocked as a boy trying to fill a dead man's shoes. Some of his allies deserted. Others whispered of abandoning England altogether. The harshest moment came when he realized he could not hold his ground. The invader had to retreat. His longships, once filled with the thunder of ambition, carried back wounded men and broken dreams. For many, this should have been the end of Cnut's story. But instead, it became his foundation. Where others saw failure, he saw a lesson. To rule England, brute force was not enough. He needed strategy, patience, and allies stronger than swords. Backhand index pointing right, this first defeat carved steel into Cnut's soul. Legends are not born of easy victories, but of wounds that refuse to kill. Fact 3. A kingdom lost and a vow made. The news of Sweyn Forkbeard's sudden death spread like wildfire. The mighty conqueror, the man who had forced England to bow, was gone. His body lay cold, and with it, his empire shattered. The English wasted no time. They recalled Ethelred the Unready from exile in Normandy, restoring him to the throne. To them, Sweyn's conquest had been nothing more than a storm, terrible but fleeting. For Cnut, it was agony. He had stood beside his father as England bent to Viking might. Now, all that remained was ashes. He was a king without a kingdom, a son carrying the weight of unfinished conquest. But grief gave way to fury. In the flicker of torchlight beside his father's corpse, Cnut swore an oath. He would not let Sweyn's dream die. He would not be remembered as the boy who failed. He would return, stronger than before, and this time, he would not just conquer England, he would rule it. Backhand index pointing right here. In death and betrayal, Cnut was reborn. His destiny sharpened into something far greater than revenge. It became empire. Fact 4. Thorkel the Tall, the towering shadow. Among Viking warriors, one name carried both fear and respect: Thorkel the Tall. A giant of a man, scarred and seasoned, he had once fought against Cnut, even serving the English king. But fate has a way of twisting loyalties. One night, in a smoky war tent, Cnut and Thorkel faced each other. Torches flickered, shadows danced, and tension crackled. Thorkel extended his massive hand. Suspicion lingered. Could a man who once fought against you now stand as your most trusted ally? Cnut did not hesitate. He clasped Thorkel's hand. The young prince had the vision, but Thorkel had the experience. Together, they forged an alliance that would terrify England. This was no simple partnership. It was fragile, built on necessity more than trust. But in the ruthless world of Vikings, necessity often bound men tighter than friendship. Backhand index pointing right, Thorkel became both mentor and enigma, a mysterious ally whose loyalty could make or break Cnut's destiny. Fact 5. The Bloody Field of Ascendon. The year 1016. The battle that would decide England's fate. The fields of Ascendon shook with the clash of steel and the cries of dying men. Shield walls slammed against each other, arrows darkened the sky, and mud turned red with blood. Cnut's forces, hardened by years of war, fought like wolves. Across the field stood Edmund Ironside, heir of Athelred, a warrior king whose courage burned like fire. For hours, neither side yielded. But whispers carry weight in war. Chroniclers later spoke of betrayal, that some English nobles switched sides at the crucial moment. Truth or myth, the result was the same. Edmund's army crumbled, and the Viking tide surged forward. By day's end, the English lay broken. Cnut's banners rose above the carnage. He was no longer a prince chasing shadows. He was now a king, crowned in blood. Backhand index pointing right, Ascendon was more than victory. It was the moment England itself bowed to the will of Cnut. Fact 6. The Queen of Strategy, Emma of Normandy. A king may conquer with steel, but he rules with alliances. Cnut understood this better than most. To secure his crown, he turned to a surprising figure, Emma of Normandy, widow of his rival Athelred. Their marriage was a masterstroke. By wedding Emma, Cnut tied himself to the English royal line. To the nobles, it was a sign of legitimacy. To the people, it was proof that he was not just an invader, but their king. Emma herself was no passive partner. Known for her intelligence and ambition, she became a queen with her own power. Some called her manipulative, others admired her cunning. With Emma at his side, Cnut gained not just a throne but a dynasty. Backhand index pointing right, the sword won him England, but the crown was secured by a queen's hand. Fact 7. The King Who Challenged the Sea. It is the most enduring tale of Cnut's reign. One day, courtiers praised his greatness, declaring that no man was mightier. Cnut, weary of their flattery, ordered his throne carried to the shoreline. He sat upon it, facing the tide. As the waves rolled closer, he raised his hand and commanded them to halt. The sea, vast and untamed, ignored him. The water lapped at his feet, climbing higher. And then, rising from his chair, Cnut declared, "Let all men know, no king has power over the sea. Only God commands such forces." Whether fact or fable, the story endured. Some saw it as humility, others as arrogance. But either way, it immortalized him not just as a ruler, but as a saga hero. Backhand index pointing right, Cnut could command armies, but the tide reminded him, and us, that even kings have limits. Fact 8. The North Sea Empire. England was only the beginning. Denmark called him king. Norway fell beneath his banners. For a brief, golden moment, Cnut ruled an empire stretching across the North Sea. His fleets dominated the waves, his armies crushed rivals, and his influence reached even into the courts of Europe. He was not just another Viking king. He was a ruler who could stand alongside the mightiest emperors of his age. Yet holding such a vast empire was like holding water in your hands. Every kingdom demanded attention. Every shore whispered rebellion. Cnut traveled constantly, a king always in motion, never resting. Backhand index pointing right for a time. He was emperor of the north. But empires built on waves are always fragile. Fact 9. The Christian king in Viking armor. Perhaps the strangest image of all is that of Cnut the Viking kneeling in a cathedral. Chronicles describe him donating gold to monasteries, building churches, and praying with genuine devotion. To the English, this was proof he was their Christian king. To his Viking followers, it was proof of compromise. Was he truly devoted, or was it another strategy to hold his crowns together? Cnut himself never explained. He lived as both, a pagan-born warrior who bowed before the cross. In his dual identity, he bridged two worlds, embodying the transformation of the Viking Age itself. Backhand index pointing right, Cnut was both wolf and shepherd, raider and protector, Viking and Christian. Fact 10. Death of an emperor, birth of a legend. In 1035, Cnut the Great died. His empire, so vast and proud, crumbled almost immediately. His sons were weak, his unity dissolved, and the North Sea once again fell into chaos. But Cnut himself did not fade. His name lived on in chronicles, sagas, and myths. To some, he was the humble king who showed that even rulers bow to God. To others, he was the emperor who bent nations to his will. History remembers him as both, a man of steel and blood, and a myth wrapped in the mist of the sea. Backhand index pointing right, Cnut's empire may have vanished like foam on waves, but his legend endures, forever caught between truth and saga embellishment.